Hmm. And I read that you were also a structural engineer, right?
Correct.
What do you think about how the towers fell?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. It's just one of those, kind of strange things nobody would have ever expected to happen. Once you get that motion starting, once you get all that mass moving, it can do a lot of damage.
Like, as an expert, do you find it reasonably possible that they could fall in free fall speed like that, like as big as they were, they came down in 10 seconds each, like exactly the same almost?
Yeah, they can, because they all have had the same design approach, the same detailing, and therefore they would fail at the same locations and should have a similar or almost the same collapse pattern.
And what about World Trade Center 7 that fell later that day?
That was the one that burned down, right?
Yeah, it fell at like 5:20 in the afternoon.
Yeah, I think that was the one that caught on fire and burned down, and that was because they had no sprinkler system on it, and the fire got to be too big for the firefighters to protect against, and the fire just burned uncontrolled, and the heat got to the point where it melted, essentially melted, heated to a point of weakening the structure that caused it to collapse.
Like, if it's like so obvious, how come it's taken NIST like 9 years to come up with some sort of excuse for it?
Oh, I don't think that's the case. I mean, it does take, what they're trying to do is prove the actual way it came down. They're trying to look for things that may be a concern in when we do building codes, how to design buildings. They're looking for something that, should we change this standard so that it doesn't create an issue again, or was this just a situation of just extreme heat that just, you really couldn't have resolved because it was just too much heat.
Well, that was a 47-story building, and it came down in 6.2 seconds.
Yeah.
Like, when you watch the video next to a controlled demolition, they look exactly the same.
Yeah, because it heated up. You get chimney effects around core areas, interior areas like stairs and elevators, and you get airflow through those chimneys, and it becomes like a blast furnace. The air gets drawn through there, and it superheats those areas, and it weakens them. And that's the same areas where you're going to demo when you demo a building, is the core areas, because they're generally stiffer. So you get this heating in the same location, and it just allowed it to move in that manner.
As I find, like, I've talked to a lot of demolitions experts and engineers and stuff, and it seems like the only people that say it came down because fire weakened the steel are like people that I see on like Discovery Channel and History Channel documentaries about it.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody else I talk to, like, they say it couldn't have came down like that because of fire weakening the steel.
Yeah, I don't understand that, because that's the nature of what happens when you heat steel. It becomes weak.
Right. Like, so why wouldn't people just light buildings on fire instead of spending all that time, setting them up for controlled demolitions, when, like, from what we could tell from 9/11, you could just light a building on fire and it falls into its footprint like that?
Well, because nobody's tried to do it to see if that really worked before. I mean, that was the first situation that something like that ever happened. There's been other buildings that have caught on fire and burned for a long time, but they eventually put them out, or else the fire was more more limited to a certain portion of the building and didn't encompass the entire building. This one, the fire encompassed the entire building, and that's what created a more global effect.
Yeah, because are there other examples of fire making buildings fall like that besides 9/11?
Not like that, because there haven't been ones that have been that big. But yeah, there have been other smaller sized structures that will collapse due to fire. It's pretty common.
But not like a total global collapse in free fall speed type of thing?
Well, it all depends. The free fall speed is based on the height of the structure, and the mass that how much it weighs and how high it is. That's where you get your speed from. So it's all dependent on that. The shorter structures don't weigh as much a lot of times, so they don't develop that speed.
So you obviously you believe, or you confirm the official story that we've been told? Like, you don't have any questions about it, or
No.
there's nothing that bothers you about what we've been told about it?
No. Feel pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah, and so, like, what about them shipping out all the steel right away out to China and stuff like that before there was like any thorough investigation? Do you think that was a problem?
It's one of those things that there gets to be too much information to try to figure out. I mean, when something falls like that, you don't know what it's bumping into. You don't know what what its impact is. You don't know how hot it got after it fell. In other words, it may have been at one temperature before it fell, and then it fell down into a spot that was burning hot, and that burning heat deformed it totally. So there's become so many variables that it's really hard to determine what you would have in front of you. In a lot of cases, there's some cases where you can say, oh, no, this is clear cut, it fell away, and you could tell hasn't been impacted by other materials. But then there's other stuff that you're just saying, oh, it's just a pile of bent up members, and you can't really tell anything from it. So,
like, have you ever heard of like Van Romero and Ronald Hamburger and?
Yeah, I know Ron Hamburger. Yeah.
Like, all those guys on the day of 9/11, they said that there must have been explosives in the building for them to come down like that, and then a week later they all changed their story and said, oh, it must have been because fire weakened the steel.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things where they had never seen something like that occurred because nobody had seen it collapse in that manner. But
so you don't think it has anything to do with them thinking maybe I should be quiet because if the official story is it fell because fire weakened the steel, I better not say anything besides that?
Yeah, no, I think they probably jumped to conclusion too early and should have kept their mouth quiet a little longer. And after thinking about it a little bit more, this does make more sense. I think there was one tall skyscraper collapse in another country based on a fire not too many years ago.
Is that like Madrid, Spain or something?
Something like that, maybe, yeah.
It burnt for like 24 hours or over a day?
Yeah, right. I think.
But it never collapsed. The structure, the steel frame was still there.
Yeah. So I don't know. There's different, it's really dependent on the materials and the fireproofing systems, what you have stored in the building and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of variables.
So do you think like Larry Silverstein must have been very lucky to have just acquired the World Trade Center a couple of months before and had that insurance policy for billions of dollars on it in case there was a terrorist attack? And then all of a sudden 2 months later there's a terrorist attack and he got this $1 billion settlement?
That's an interesting thing. I don't know. Who knows? It all, things happen in strange ways. But yeah, he may have lucked out.
Okay, well, thank you very much for talking to me. I won't take up any more of your time.
Alrighty, take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.